your clay is going to come in a bag like this. If the bag is one that is pretty thick, which this one is not, then you'll be fine. This one isn't that thick, so it could easily tear. So I'm actually going to, after I'm done, keep this in a Ziploc bag, a large gallon-sized Ziploc bag, or take some saran wrap and really wrap it up tightly, because any air that gets to your clay is going to dry it out. Now remember, before you get started, to make sure that you have all your supplies ready to go. So in this case, I'm going to be doing a little bit of hand building. So I'm going to have my little bit of slip. All slip is it's going to be some water. So I just took a bottle of water, added some water to it, a little bit of clay. You can see the little bit of balls of clay in there. And for that, you're just going to take some clay and just pull some balls off of it. Stick it in the water, and then you're going to mix it up. And that's going to create this sort of weird pudding-like consistency. And you're going to need that anytime you connect two pieces of clay together. You're going to want to make sure that your table is covered. Clay is very messy, so I have just some newsprint, came in the mail, put it on the table. I have a little cloth, paper towel, anything to wipe your hands with while you're working. I also have a paintbrush, not a real great one that's not real important to me, so I don't care if it gets messy. And then I also have a little bit of thread. If you have floss or anything like that, and I'll show you what this is for in a couple minutes, but if you have floss or string or thread, that's going to be really helpful too. Okay, so now we're ready to get some of our clay off of this big chunk of clay. Now, this is where that thread is going to come in handy. If I open this up, you'll see that this clay, it's a big chunk of clay. So what you can do is you can take your thread or your floss, whichever one you're using, just take a little bit of it. I'm just going to put that right across the front of this, right across the top. And then I'm just going to hold on to one end, so I'm holding real tight onto one end, and I'm holding on real tight to the other end. And I'm just going to drag that thread through until I get the amount that I want. And what you'll see it does is it actually cuts it really cleanly for you. So depending on how much you want, you're going to be able to use this thread to cut your clay a lot cleaner. Instead of trying to use a knife or something like that and trying to cut into this very wet clay, which is going to be really difficult to do. Okay, so once I have my piece of clay and I'm ready to start working, I'm going to be showing you first just a real basic coil build. So for that, I'm just going to make a ball. So I'm just going to roll out my ball of clay, just like, if you're playing with Play-Doh or something like that. And I'm just going to press it down. Now, I don't want this to get too thin, but I also want to watch how thick I leave it. Because the way that the clay dries is that the water in the clay is going to evaporate. And if the water evaporates too quickly, it's going to crack. So we don't want to leave it too thick, because then the inside would have more water in it and the outside would have less, and it would start to crack away from each other. So for a coil build, you're just going to make snakes. So just like a coil, think of snakes. So I'm just going to roll out some clay into some pretty consistent logs. So just making those little snakes all the way down that piece of clay until I get to the end. So trying to keep it pretty consistent. This is where you're going to get that slip that you made. Now I have that the slip in my cup, and I'm just going to take it and I'm just going to brush on some of that slip where I want to connect my pieces together. Now once I do that, I'm going to want to do something that's called scoring to make sure that my pieces stay together. You can do this with your fingers. If you have long nails like I do, you can do it with your nails. If you have anything that's got a point. So I've got my cup here of paper clips. So I'm just going to open that up. And I'm just going to take a paper clip out of here that I've already unbent. And I'm just going to take that, I'm just going to put some little lines in this so that it has some little grooves in the clay. So a little bit of cross hatching there we've learned in when it comes to drawing lines. Same thing. Just making some scoring lines. So as you can see, I have some little lines in there. I'm going to do the same thing to my rope. So I'm just going to go wherever I want that rope to connect, I'm just going to put some of those lines in. I'm going to go all the way around until I get to it. Until I get to the point that I'm going to stop connecting. Put a little bit more of that slip on just to make sure it's nice and sticky. Slip's going to be the glue. So think of it like the glue. Then I'm just going to take and I'm going to put one row on here. Now my snake here is longer than I need for it to be. But the reason is because now I'm going to layer it. But because I'm, again, putting clay together, what do I need to do? Well, I need to score it and I need to put some slip on it. So I'm going to go around, going to put those score lines in, going to do the same thing to the piece that I'm going to be connecting. Going to get my slip out, going to put that glue on there, that clay glue. Going to put it on both sides. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go around again. And what you'll see is that as you go around, you're slowly going to start building your piece. Now, if your piece you run out of clay, but you want to make it taller, just roll another piece and then put it on there. Now, what you can do here, you can leave it like this, or if you want, you can work on molding it. So you can kind of push all those pieces together and smooth it out and make it look a little bit cleaner. If you like the look of the coils, you can leave them as coils, but it's completely up to you. You can also use a little bit of that slip if you see a little bit of cracking and kind of smooth it out with that slip. Don't overuse the slip though, because it can make the clay very wet and then it won't hold its form anymore. So I'm just coming around here and I'm just smoothing that out as best as I can. So just smoothing that out. Okay, so that's going to be your one way to hand build a piece. Okay, the other way you can do is just a pinch pot. Super easy. This is probably the easiest way. Make a ball. Just roll out a ball, just like that. All you're going to do is you're going to push your thumbs into the center. So you're just going to put a dent in there. Then you're going to put your thumbs inside and you're just going to work your way around, pulling that clay away from the inside and pinching the sides at the same time. You'll notice that your pot, your little clay guy, starts to get a lot bigger. You can change the shape, kind of remold it as you're going around, but you're going to start to see it turn into a pot here. So we're just going to keep going around and around and around. You would then, again, just smooth out those lines, work on it a little bit more until you like how it's turning out. Okay, so there's two of our ways that we can make something. The last but not least, we also have the option of slab. Now this is going to be a little bit harder because this clay that I'm using here, this is a pretty soft clay. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You're going to need a support if you're going to decide to do this. So for this works really well for something that maybe you want to make a square. Now I have my paper clip again, going to come in handy here because I'm going to make this into a square shape. So I'm just going to pull away the extra pieces that I just cut away. And then what I would do, so this is my base, so I have my little square base. Then what I would need to do is just make some sides, so some walls for the side. For that, same thing, make a ball. And then you're going to press down, make yourself another square. You want to match it up so the sides are the same size. Cut those away. And you want that one side to be flat, so make sure the one side is flat. Now, because we're connecting again, we need to score and slip again. So we're going to score that edge. We're going to score where we're going to connect it. Gonna put that slip on. Put the slip on the other side too. And then we're gonna push that down. Now again, because this is a wet clay, I'm gonna wanna use something to hold it up. So I have the lid to my paper clips over here. And I'm just gonna put that next to it. And I would just let that dry once I have all the 4 sides on. So once I have all 4 sides and I have something supporting, I'll be able to leave that to dry. Now what you want to remember when you're letting your clay dry is that you want the moisture to come out slowly. You don't want this moisture in here to come out quickly, because if the moisture comes out too quickly, it's going to crack. What you'll do then is you'll just put some plastic right over the top so that it dries slowly. You'll put the plastic over it. So if this were my plastic, this is my little hand cloth, but if this were the plastic, I would place it over it. A couple hours later, come back, just pull it up a little bit. So a little bit of air is getting in there and getting to my clay and pulling that moisture out. Next morning, come out, open it up a little bit more. Let it dry a little bit more. About halfway through the day, around lunchtime, take it the rest of the way off. That should let your pieces dry slow enough that they won't crack. Now, since we're going to be painting these, if you do happen to get some cracks, it's no big deal because you can paint them with your acrylic paint, and that'll cover up any of those cracks that appear. So you want to try, if you're going to have any cracks that do appear, try to keep those to a minimum and only have small, tiny cracks that might appear. Hopefully none appear on yours. This is going to be just a basic overview. Also in your course, make sure that you do check out the clay building cheat sheet that I've loaded into your course. It's in the resources section. That also has all these directions in it. You can print it out and keep it by you while you're working. My piece has dried, we are ready to paint. So for this, we're going to be using our acrylic paints. Now remember, you really actually only need the 3 primary colors and you'll be good to go. So I have pulled out the vermilion, the ultramarine blue, and the lemon yellow. And I put those 3 onto my paper plate. Now you'll notice that some of them, when they come out, they might have a little bit of this goo on it. That is completely fine. That is just the sizing and the pigment have separated. So if you just mix it back up together, you'll be fine. It'll work just as well as it did before. If you use a paper plate like this, it works great because then if you need to mix any of the colors, all you have to do is take a little bit of one of the colors, put it onto the paper plate, scoop up a little bit of a different color, and put that right there with it. And whenever you mix those together, you will get the colors that you want. So if I want to make purple, I'm just going to mix some red and some blue. Once I have the colors that I'm looking for, I'm just going to come in and I'm going to paint my piece. So I'm just going to put some paint on there, just get whatever color it is I'm looking for. Going to come in here, I'm just going to do the whole thing, just keep going until I completely cover my piece with whatever color it was I was looking for. Recommend that you do a one cover of it, and then come back over and do your second coat. That way you'll get all those little nooks and crannies on your piece filled in.